Hi, everybody. My name is Emma Lutkins, and for my final project, I decided to research how we can make mathematical discourse more accessible to more of our students, particularly in the secondary mathematical setting. What I'll be looking at is using multimodal teaching methods, such as gamification, to increase student self-confidence in partaking in mathematical discourse, and that will lead to showing an increased level of understanding and an increased level of achievement in our secondary math students. This is my thesis for the paper. I'm not going to read it word for word, but what I'm going to be looking at is how using these multimodal teaching methods like gamification help us create natural opportunities for our secondary math learners to partake in mathematical discourse in a way that feels more accessible to them. The goal with doing that is that students will have a space to grow their mathematical self-confidence and then ultimately have higher levels of understanding of mathematics and higher levels of achievement in mathematics. To situate this a little bit, I want to talk about why this is important, starting with our elementary schools. When you look at mathematics in an elementary setting, you see a wide use of multimodal teaching methods. You see students engaging with hands-on manipulatives. You see teachers using gestures and images to help students gain a mathematical understanding. You see whole group discussions, which is our elementary learners partaking in mathematical discourse. And even in my elementary school at my district, students claim that math is their favorite subject. They think it's fun. Then you hit the middle school and a change happens. Math becomes more abstract when students get to middle and high school. They're asked to reason more theoretically and more logically, and to some students, that's really where the wheels seem to fall off. To compound on that, when you get to middle and high school mathematics, our delivery mode for teaching becomes more lecture-based than multimodal, and that can make it very challenging for students to feel a connection with the content they're learning. As a result, student perception of themselves start to change. They start to feel self-conscious in their mathematical abilities. They start to think negatively about themselves in relation to mathematics. Math begins to feel exclusive, like it's only for the best and the brightest, the people who get it right off the bat and who don't need extra explanation. And that's not how math should feel. So to combat these feelings, I argue that we need to bring that multimodal learning all the way through a student's education, through middle and high school. One method that we can use to do this is gamification. Now, gamification, as we know, is the process of bringing game-like features into the classroom, not necessarily actual video games. Two things that I want to highlight that came up in my research. The first is that gamification allows more experimentation in classrooms. Now, we see this a lot in elementary schools already with their multimodal learning, but by bringing gamification to middle and high school, we're bringing back that experimentation process. We're allowing students to try something once, maybe fail at it, learn from that, and try again. This is really important in our secondary classrooms because it helps to counteract a narrative with our students that if they fail, that's the end, that's done, there's no more learning to be had. When in fact, a lot of times in math, once you fail, that's when the real learning starts. Gamification will also allow for more collaboration in our secondary math classrooms. When you're learning in a lecture-based setting, there isn't room for that collaboration, so students start to feel self-conscious sharing their own thoughts. By bringing gamification in, we're giving students the opportunity to share their ideas, learn from others, and be more confident partaking in that communication, which is our mathematical discourse. In the future, it's important to continue looking at this study. We need to look towards the long-term impacts. Most of the readings that I looked at were short-term impacts. What I'm curious is, with using these multimodal learning methods, are we really setting students up to be more self-confident and more successful as they continue through difficult math courses? Are we really preparing students to want to and be able to go towards STEM? And do some of our learners who thought that STEM was inaccessible before feel that STEM is now accessible to them? In addition to that, it's important to look at how teachers are being prepared to run these more multimodal math classrooms. There's not a lot of research on what teacher prep programs are doing to get teachers ready for running multimodal math classrooms. And so I think it would be a good use of resources to find that standard of how we're making sure that our teachers are ready to teach students in ways that are more accessible. And that was really the highlights of my paper. I look forward to seeing what questions you have in the discussion and watching your videos as well.